Hi, I'm John. This is my show, An American Scheme, where I'm proving that Diana Ross is Michael Jackson's actual mother. So, the way my whole investigation started with was I was watching the movie Lady Sings the Blues. And this is about 6 months after Michael Jackson had passed away. So, you got to understand that I'm 48 years old, so I didn't do any investigation during my life. I was just a Michael Jackson fan. And just because I was a Michael Jackson fan, I had a lot of knowledge just from being a fan, okay? So it's not like I had done any crazy investigation. It's just I had a lot of knowledge. But then what happened is when Michael Jackson died, two pieces of information came into my life that, it's one of these things I noticed it. And but then nothing happened until about 6 months later when I watched the movie Lady Sings the Blues. That's Diana Ross's first movie. So when Michael Jackson died, the two pieces of information that I came into was Michael Jackson's will. And so here in the middle it says, if any of my children are minors at the time of my death, I nominate my mother, Katherine Jackson, as guardian of the persons and estates of such minor children. If Katherine Jackson fails to survive me or is unable or unwilling to act as guardian, I nominate Diana Ross as guardian of the persons and estates of each minor children. Okay, so I saw this in the will, and that's who Michael gives. He gives his whole estate, everything to his children, and there is none of the Jackson families in his will, but he gave guardianship to Catherine if he passed away while the children were still minors. But if Catherine couldn't do it, remember she's an old lady and stuff, right? So if she couldn't fulfill the obligation, he nominated Diana Ross. So when I saw Diana Ross was in his will, that just was something that stood out to me. It's like, wow, because I'd known a lot of this stuff, obviously. If you're a Michael Jackson fan, Diana Ross is important, She's a big deal, all the way with the Jackson 5, but it continued. They had a big, obvious relationship, right? So I got that piece of information, and then the other thing that happened was the memorial happened, and Diana Ross didn't show up to the memorial. And when it happened, nobody really made a big deal about this. Like on the news, it wasn't like they didn't jump on her. Like I thought there would have been some attention brought to oh my God, Diana Ross didn't show up to the memorial. It was like, what? I was pissed. Like when this happened, I was like, what? I was like, because I'm a fan, I was like, I can't believe Diana Ross didn't show. I was stunned. So this was the thing that it affected me. Okay, so that's what I'm saying is these things happen. And I heard that she was in the will. Then she doesn't show up to the memorial. I personally, as a fan, I was like, what the hell? I was like, how was that? How did she not show up? Right? But then what happened is when the memorial started. If you watch it too, Michael's casket has not even been brought out. When Smokey reads this letter, it was the very first thing that happened. And it was even before the casket. They didn't even bring the casket out till after this, which that was another thing when it happened, because I watched this live. I remember watching this when it happened. And so I'm watching this. I actually recorded. I have a VHS. I have a VHS recording of it. So I was just I was stunned. It affected me in a way where it stuck in my head. And so let me play you this one little part here just to show you.
Let me just interrupt. Let's go to the stage inside the Staples Center. Smokey Robinson.
I want you to know that even though I am not there at the Staples Center, I am there in my heart. I've decided to pause and be silent. This feels right for me. Michael was a personal love of mine, a treasured part of my world, part of the fabric of my life, in a way that I can't seem to find words to express. Michael wanted me to be there for his children, and I will be there if they ever need me.
Okay, so she says, I've decided to pause and be silent, okay? So when I look at this now, because I've done my investigation of the Michael Jackson and being her love child of Smokey, and then it's Smokey, it's Smokey reading the letter, you know? And I didn't, when I first had my original thoughts that Diana could be the mom, I'm not thinking about Smokey. And then it was like, and then when I found Smokey, then I instantly have, oh yeah, Smokey read the letter, you know? And I mean, there's just so much. And so the point of this video is I'm going to try and explain to you that all you guys have to do, you don't have to look at my video and say, oh, he proved the whole thing. What you just have to do is just ask yourself the simple question is like, with the stuff I'm showing you, is it a credible question to be asked that is Diana Ross Michael Jackson's mother? That's all, because that's where my whole investigation started, is I just asked that question. And that's what I'm trying to get the public to just ask that question. Is it a question that's worthy of being asked? Okay, well, is Diana Ross Michael's mother, is that what's going on here? So when I show you this this clip here, like what she said, I've decided to pause and be silent. So think about the reality if she was Michael Jackson's mother. Okay, if Diana Ross was Michael Jackson's actual mother and then the memorial happened, think about the reality of the emotional situation she's in. Okay, and her word says, I've decided to pause and be silent. Okay, she decided to pause because she can't do it, and the words perfectly actually fit that she is his mother. Because when you look at it, the situation, it's like, okay, if she's the person that she was in Michael Jackson's life, and they have whatever relationship, and you know, she had this, one of the things is she had to go to the memorial. And the letter proves that she had to go to the memorial too, because where she says, Michael wanted me to be there for his children, and I will be if they ever need me. So that's because the will, like I said, the will had come out and it nominated her in the will. And then she says, Michael wanted me to be there for her children, and I will be if they ever need me. Okay, well, the children are there. The children are sitting there, okay? It's just a simple reality. When would those children ever actually need her more in their lives than at that moment? Then at the funeral. They definitely needed her there. If Michael nominated her, she needed to be there for the kids. If ever she never ever needed to be anywhere for those kids, right there, that was the moment. But she didn't do it. And she just says in her letter, I'll be there for the kids if they ever need me, but she wasn't there. So and then she says why she doesn't come. I've decided to pause and be silent. Why would she have to be silent? What is so big that she's going to spill the beans about, or what she's worried about, that she decided to pause? Because she just decided to pause. Because when she says pause, that means she's lost. She doesn't know what to do, and she has to be silent. Well, why would she have to be silent? And then it says, Michael was a personal love of mine, part of the fabric of my life. Part of the fabric of my life. That's part of the fabric of my life. Well, you would think that the woman would have went to the memorial then, right? Everybody else went there. You know, Smokey was there, Berry Gordy is there, you know, and all these other people, and Michael's children, you know, all the Jacksons, they're all there. But Diana Ross didn't go, you know, and it's like, and then when you listen to her letter, it's weird. It's weird when you don't know the truth, but when you actually know the truth that she's his mother, now it all perfectly makes sense. And so, but see, this time when I watched this, I didn't know she was his mother. But it's like one of those things in my subconscious. I heard this. I saw, like I said, I saw this live. And so what happened was the two pieces of information. I was a fan, but then when he died, I got these pieces of information that she didn't show up to the memorial, and then she sent that letter, and I got the information that she was in Michael Jackson's will. Okay, so that's what enabled me when I saw the movie Lady Sings the Blues. What actually happened was, it was about 6 months after Michael passed away. I was watching the movie Lady Sings the Blues. It was the first time I saw it. So I'm watching it, and you know, that movie came out in like 1972, so it's a younger Diana Ross. And so when she was singing, I literally was like she was morphing into Michael Jackson. It was like, I was literally, and it was so powerful, because what happened was, I saw it happen, like all of a sudden there was Diana Ross, and then I saw Michael Jackson. I mean, she morphed into Michael Jackson, and I was seeing Michael Jackson. And so I literally like sat up and stared at it, and it just kept happening. It happened. It was going on for a while. And so it was so, powerful, right? When I saw that, And it just continued. It wasn't like just it happened one thing. I literally sat up and it still was doing it. And I was literally looking at Michael Jackson. And because I had this other information, that's what enabled me to ask the question. So I asked the question, oh wait, could Diana Ross be Michael Jackson's mother? Is that the whole thing? What the hell? So I watched the movie, then after the movie ended, that's when my investigation started. I started investigating into this, right? But the point of this, of what I'm trying to show you here, is look at what it took to get me to just ask the question. Could Diana Ross be Michael Jackson's mother? And so that's what I'm saying. At that point, I don't have any proof. And that's what I'm asking the fans to understand at this point. I'm just trying to get you people to get to the point where you ask the question, where you really ask it, where you ask, hey, wait, can she be his mother? And so I'm going to show you a few things here. And that's all I want you to do is after I show you, and I have so much evidence, it was hard for me I have a few things I'm going to show you, but I have so many things to show. It was hard for me just to show you just a few things because I have got a lot. I've got it all. I've got it all documented. I've got so much stuff now, and I've done the investigation. But the problem is I've got so much, and it actually entails so much. It's so much history because we're talking about Smokey Robinson and Berry Gordy, the creation of Motown. You got to go back to Joe Jackson's history prior to when Michael's born, to when all the kids. You got to go back when he was young, and you understand that when he was in the band The Falcons, after he got out of boxing and he started in the band The Falcons, and you see the scene that he's coming in, then you understand that that's how it all happened, is that Berry Gordy and Joe Jackson know each other. They were friends. They were running around in the same circles. They're the same age. That Berry Gordy and Joe Jackson are the same age. And see, that's how I found the connections. I've got the evidence. I got it all documented that the reason they gave Michael away is because it happened right at the beginning stages of the development of Motown. And Berry Gordy, once he found out that Smokey had gotten a 14-year-old Diana Ross pregnant, Berry Gordy knew he could not build his record company because a lot of people don't actually know that Smokey Robinson's the Miracles was the first group signed. It's actually Tamlet, but we'll say Motown. But okay, so Smokey Robinson, he's their first artist. But he's not just an artist, he's a songwriter. He's a big deal. So it was, when Motown got created, it was because Berry Gordy met Smokey Robinson. When you go and you see the facts, like I said, I've done the research now. And now I understand that the whole reason Motown was created is when those two met. When those two met, that's the creation of Motown. And what do you find out at that time is that Diana Ross is sleeping in Smokey Robinson's house at that same time because Diana Ross is best friends with Smokey's cousin named Sharon. But Sharon lives in Smokey's house. They live in the same house. And Diana's best friends with Sharon, which enables Diana to stay over at Smokey's house. So like I said, I've done this investigation and I've done the research. I found all this stuff. I got it all. I got so much, it's like I could just keep going on and on. But so I've done the investigation, but you guys, you could look at my videos and there's a lot there. That's the problem, is like even just explaining it here, it takes time. But I've got it in my videos. I've documented it all, but I can't get people to watch all of the stuff. So what I'm trying to get you to do is just understand that you just have to ask the question. From what I'm going to show you in this video, you just got to ask a simple question. Is it a valid question to be asked that could Diana Ross be Michael Jackson's mother? Like with what I'm showing you here, that's all you got to do is just say, well, did I show you enough for you to get to the point where you can just ask that question? Well, could this be true? And then that's all you got to do is once you ask, can it be true? You'll see information will just start coming at you on your own. But then if you look into my stuff, just watch a video here and there, you're going to start seeing that I've got real good information. I've got really good facts with the people. It's documented, really solid, hardcore stuff. So I'm going to show you a few pieces of the information, right? Okay, so listen to this. It comes on really quick.
Could be part of my family.
Yes.
We have a lot of the same bone structure and a lot of skin color.
Well, Michael does now because he's had it all done.
Okay, so, and I just had to play where he says Michael, because so you know she's talking about Michael Jackson. But what she says there in the beginning is, could be part of my family. She says we have the same bone structure and our skin color is the same. So she says Michael could be part of her family. Okay, Michael's not part of her family, and not only is he part of her family, Michael's part of the Jackson family. So, and they're a Motown act, okay? So for her, and when she says part of my family, she doesn't just say, oh, he could be part of my family. She emphasizes it. We've got the same bone structure. Our skin color's the same. She's telling you like physical traits that a mother and a son would have, okay? So that's what I'm saying. With this question, with this, it's like, listen to what she actually says. He could be part of my family. Why would she ever? It's one of those things. Why would Diana Ross ever say that? Because it's very disrespectful to the Jackson family. Why would she want to be hoarding in on Michael to be saying he could be part of my family? Didn't say any of the other Jacksons could be part of her family. It's always Michael. It's always over and over. But she literally says he could be part of my family. We've got the same bone structure, physical freaking traits. You know, that's like, okay, so it's like, I'm not the one saying this shit. That's what I'm saying. Once I started doing the investigation, she was saying it. She was telling people. And it's one of the things she left behind the information so that one day somebody would find it. Because I know that Diana Ross wants the world to know that Michael is her son. Because Michael's the love child. It's her and Smokey. She wants the world to know that that kid was the child of her and Smokey, because Smokey, you know, he's the great entertainer, singer, songwriter, and she's the big star singer, you know, and Michael became bigger than all of them. She wants the world to know. She put this information out there. But back then there was no internet, and they weren't going to be showing this on the news. Like, this wasn't going to make the news. This was something that if you saw it at the time, you saw it, and then that's all there was going to be to it. That's why she was doing this stuff. Okay, so that's one of the things. Now, this part here, listen to this.
When I was little, I used to stay with Diana Ross. Me and my brothers, we stayed with her for years.
Okay, so what happened in Michael Jackson's Moonwalk book, he says that when the Jacksons moved to L.A. after they signed to Motown, he says they moved into Diana Ross's house. So that's another thing, like I'm saying. This is the stuff, I didn't know this stuff. Maybe I'd heard it. Obviously, I'd seen that Oprah. And that's what I'm saying. There was things in my subconscious mind, right? That's like, it's not like I remembered the interview, because it's like when the Oprah interview happened, I watched it once, you know. It's like those kind of things, right? I saw it, so I heard that information, but it's not like it was like stuck in my head, you know. But that's what I'm saying. The things were in my subconscious, and so that's what enabled me to ask the question, because I had this information. I did have this information, but I didn't know I had it. You know, it's one of those things. I had to go back and look to find, but I know I saw this Oprah interview. That's what I'm saying. Since I'm old, I saw these interviews when they happened. So I did have this information was in my subconscious. There was stuff I knew about Michael and Diana, you know, but that they lived together, that wasn't a thing that was like primarily in my head and stuff, but I didn't really understand it. But so in his book, Moonwalk, Michael says that not only did they live with Diana, Michael specifies that Diana would take him out alone almost every day, and she would take him and teach him on art and stuff. And like Mike, he says, and Mike shows him Michelangelo, and like I just seen a video the other day where Michael was talking about that Michelangelo's his favorite artist. He was talking about, there was in that Detail, that page called Detail in YouTube, and they were talking about Michael Jackson's artwork and stuff, and Michael was talking about Michelangelo. Then he went and was talking about David, the famous sculpture of David. It was done by Michelangelo. Michelangelo also painted the Sistine Chapel in the Vatican, the really famous painting up there. Michelangelo's incredibly talented, super famous and shit, right? And so Michael in the book, so like I'm saying, in the Detail, they were talking, that's what I'm saying, I have so much stuff I could show you. So in the Detail, they were talking about Michael. He was saying my favorite artist is Michelangelo. Okay, well in the book Moonwalk, he says that Diana Ross would take him out alone. When they were living in her house, Diana would take him out alone and teach him about artists like Michelangelo. So that's where his first interest in Michelangelo would have started, through Diana Ross, which becomes then Michelangelo's his favorite artist of all time. And so So he said for about a period of a year and a half. See, like right here, and you see in this video right here, he said, when I was younger, he said, me and my brothers lived with Diana Ross for years, right? But the real story, like the real thing about it is that when the Jacksons moved into their house, Michael always had a bedroom in Diana's house. I heard Evan Ross say that, oh, Michael, he had his own room in our house. He always had his own room, you know? So Michael technically from that point on always had a bedroom in a house of Diana Ross. There was always an extra room for him. And like I've seen Tracy Ellis Ross talk about, oh, Michael, yeah, he'd go on vacations with us. We'd go to vacation. Michael would go on trips with us, vacations. There's, like I'm saying, there's so much more that I could show you guys and tell you about. I've got all kinds of stuff, but what happens is it's there. It's abundant. It's way too much. And once you understand that how much of it is actually out there, then you just understand that I didn't put it there. I didn't make this stuff up. I just enabled myself to ask the question, could Diana Ross be Michael's mom? Is that from the story from what I know? Then when I went back and investigated, everywhere I looked, there was evidence and real evidence, and it all lines up perfectly. So when the Jacksons moved to LA, they moved into Diana Ross's house. And then Michael says in his book Moonwalk that Diana would take him out alone. They would go out alone. And it's like, would Joseph Jackson really allow that to happen? Would he allow Diana just to take out Michael? You got to be in house the stern father figure of what Joseph is, right? But when you understand that it's Diana and that she's the actual mother, it's like, well, Joseph didn't have a choice. Diana took him. She was doing what she wanted. Like, she's got the reputation of being the boss, right? The boss, right? So she was taking him out alone over a period of a year and a half. That's what he says in the book Moonwalk. But here he says, I lived with her for years because I've heard, like I said, I've heard other information that Michael always had a room in their house after that, you know? And that's what it's like. It's not sexual because their relationship started when Michael's like 10 years old, you know? And then Diana, she gets married like right after that. She gets married and starts having kids and stuff. And so it's like she was doing her whole thing. Michael's still a kid while all that's going on. Their relationship's something else. Something else is going on. There's something else going on. And this, in the song Billie Jean, I turned down the volume here because I'm going to play this. But so now when people are talking about, because I say, like I said, I've done so much research and stuff that I know that the song Billie Jean, Diana Ross is Billie Jean. The actual song Billie Jean is about when Michael was living in her house when he was 10 years old. And what happened was Diana Ross told him at that time the truth, that she was his real mother. And then you look at the song Billie Jean and now you'll see this is what Billie Jean is about. Diana Ross is Billie Jean. Okay, so she came and stood right by me. So when you see that, you can see that the woman is in control. She came and stood right by me. Okay, the woman is the one who she's the one invoking that encounter. She came and stood right by me. She's got the power. Whoever this Billie Jean woman is has the power to come and walk right up to Michael and stand right by him. Okay? Because what's happening is this is occurring in Diana Ross's house. This is the telling of when Diana comes up to Michael and she takes him to the room and she tells him. Okay? And that's what you're going to see with these words. It fits the story perfect. There's not like any little bit of a misunderstanding. It's perfect. Okay? So that's what I'm trying to get the people to understand. It's like I've actually explained the song Billie Jean. I actually explained what it's actually about, that Diana's Billie Jean, that Michael's the kid in the song. Okay, so let's look at these words here. She came and stood right by me. Then the smell of sweet perfume, which is like Diana, if you know anything about Diana Ross, and people, they always talk about how good she smelled because she's Diana Ross, she's got the smell of sweet perfume, right? And so it gives you a hint to who this woman is, right? Then the smell of sweet perfume. This happened much too soon because Michael's only 10 years old. He's only 10 years old. So when he's saying this happened, people assume that he's talking about a sexual thing, but it's not a sexual encounter at all. It's Diana Ross is getting ready to inform him that she's his real mother. And they're in her house, as Michael just stated, that they were living in her house when he was young. It's when they first moved to LA, when they got signed to Motown, okay? So when he's saying this happened much too soon, because he's only 10 years old, okay? She came and stood right by me. The smell of sweet perfume, it's Diana Ross. He's perfectly explaining it. And there's no like mistaking. It's exactly what I'm talking about. She called me to her room. Okay, she's in charge. The woman came and stood by Michael, just to smell of sweet perfume. She called me to her room. Okay, because it's in her house. Michael, come with me. I mean, think about the reality of the story of what I'm saying. This song explains when Diana Ross informed Michael Jackson that she was his real mother. Now look at the words of the song. And you understand that Michael was living in her house when he was 10 years old. He was living in her house. You know, everything. Diana Ross is calling, saying Michael could be part of my family. Diana Ross is in Michael Jackson's will. But Diana Ross fails to show up at the memorial. You know, it's all of it. There's just no doubt about it. She called me to her room. Billie Jean's not my lover, and the word lover and mother sure sound a lot alike. Billie Jean's not my lover because she's his mother. And he tells you, okay, so when he says this happened much too soon, she called me to her room, right? But then the next line he states, Billie Jean's not my lover, so he's telling you this is not a sexual encounter that happened right there. He tells you over and over in the song, Billie Jean's not my lover. This doesn't have anything to do with that. He's telling you, Billie Jean's not my lover. She's my mother. I mean, think about the word too. She's not my lover. She's my mother. You know, the words perfectly rhyme. You know, it's perfect. And he's telling you she's not my lover. So that woman came and stood right by him with the smell of sweet perfume. She calls him to the room. And, you know, this happens much too soon. She calls him to the room. So what is he talking about when he tells you the next line, she's not my lover? She's not my lover. You know, she's just a girl who claims that I am the one, but the kid is not my son. She tells Michael, you're the one, you're the love child, you're the reason all of this happened. Because when I explained that, there's so much that happened revolved around, like there would be no Jacksons. If Diana doesn't get pregnant, at that moment too, the song Shopper, there's so much, I see it's like, if I go into it, it's just too much. But just understanding that, if she doesn't give the child away, there's no Jackson family. You never hear about the Jackson 5. The only reason you hear about the Jackson 5 is because Michael got put in that house. Joe Jackson knew he had a connection back to Motown with Berry Gordy, so he started working. As soon as that's why when Michael shows talent at 5 years old, what does Joe do? They hit the road. These formed a band. And just think about the reality. Joseph never took any of his other kids out on the road. He wasn't forming a band with his other kids. It was only when Michael showed the talent. When Michael showed the talent, as soon as he possibly could, he hits the road because he knows this is his connection back to Motown. This is his ticket out of the ghetto, and he went boom. As soon as Michael showed talent, boom, we started a band. And so that's what happened. That's why it happens. That's how come, and it's a perfect evidence that he was not forming a band with his other kids because those kids didn't have a connection back to Motown. But as soon as this kid shows talent, who's got the connection back to Motown, Joseph starts a band. But that's what I'm saying. There would be no Jackson 5 if they don't give Michael to the family. None of the Jackson 5 thing. That's why she says, I'm the one, because it was him. Michael made all of this stuff happen, you know, but the kid's not my son, because that's what she tells Michael she says, I'm the one, you made all this happen, but the kid's not my son. She hit him also with, you got to stay at Jackson. You got to stay at Jackson because we're all stars now and you are officially a Jackson. So she says, I'm the one, but the kid's not my son. And that's where Michael's heart broke. You know, that's why when you think about the life of what he lived and the way he is, it's because his heart was broken. When this happened in the house and Diana told him, and he's trying to please everybody. Now he's got to please Diana. He's got to please Motown. He's got to please the Jackson family. He's got to please all the public, right? And so all the time he's like, well, what about me? You know? And everybody's using him, and that's the way he lived his life. And I can't even get the fans who act like they care about him. And just think about the reality. Out of all those people, the Jackson family, Diana Ross, Smokey Robinson, Berry Gordy, out of all those people, who was the first one to die? It was Michael. And why? Because they broke his freaking heart. That's why he's dead. And it's like, the fans always want to stand up, and it's like, you guys can't prove anything. Like the MJINNOCENT, there's nothing that you can do because Michael's life and history shows him without hanging out women, and he's hanging out with kids. So there's all kinds of people, and he lived at Peter Pan and Neverland Ranch. The people are going to assume he's a pedophile. Unless you, and that's what I'm saying, the people, they would say, we're defending Michael. No, you're not. You're attacking me and you're attacking Michael because my story is the only one that actually explains who he is. That his heart was broken at 10 years old. That's what led him to live in the life in which he led, which he definitely wasn't touching the children, because what happened was he was a virgin his whole life. You know, so my story is the only thing that actually clears it up. And the fans, they attack me for it. If you attacking me, you're attacking Michael Jackson, because I'm the only person here actually telling his true story. So all you got to do is ask yourself, within this evidence I just showed you, can you get to the point where you just ask yourself, could Diana Ross be Michael's mom? Could she be? You just, that's all I'm saying. You don't, this is not all the evidence. I've got much more. I've got it all documented. I've got it. But with just what I showed you, can you at least get to the point where at this point you can just get to where you ask yourself, like I did, you got to take that first step. Is Diana Ross Michael Jackson's actual mother? You have to, if you can't do that, how are you going to see anything of what I'm showing you? You've got to really ask the question and start looking. And once you look, you're going to see just like what I'm showing you. It's everywhere. It's even the song Billie Jean. This is what the song Billie Jean's about. It's clearly obvious as can be. Once you actually know the real history and understand what's going on, and think about the reality. On Motown 25, what's the song that Michael does on his solo thing that's documented that he ordered Berry Gordy, says, okay, you want me to perform? Okay, but I'm going to do a solo performance. What song does he do? Billie Jean. Because that's the song. That's the one that was the actual song that explained everything. That's why that was the song he demanded. Okay, I'm going to do a solo. I'm going to do Billie Jean, and I'm going to do this incredible performance, and it's going to be iconic like forever. Because that's the only way he could fight back. That's all he could do. You know, so now it's time. He did what he could. He did everything he could. Can the fans at least stand up for him now and just give it a chance that this is what's really going on? Because the only way you're ever going to do anything for Michael is to expose the truth. The truth has to be known. And if you don't think, look at what I'm showing you. He wanted the truth to be known. Diana is begging for somebody out there to do this. She'll spill the beans. That's one of the reasons why I keep yelling. So when you hear me yelling and I'm so angry and mad at the fans, because Diana Ross could die. If she dies, you know what we lose? It's like, come on, Michael's already dead. The only thing that we can do now is to expose the truth while Diana Ross is still alive. We need to hear her story. She's still alive. But she could die any time. If she dies, do you understand what we lose? That's why I get so mad and I yell at the fans so much, because I'm like, come on, this can happen right now. I just need the littlest bit of help, and look at what I'm actually doing. People start talking about it. I see how it works on the internet now. It spreads. It spreads fast. And once it starts to spread fast, Diana Ross will be forced to answer the question. And once you hit her with this stuff, she cannot deny it. She can't expose the truth because she's in bed with everybody. She made a deal. She will not explain. Catherine's alive. She's not going to do that to Catherine. She's not going to do it on her own. But if I come out and we do it like this, we force her, she's going to have to tell the truth. It's the only way it can happen. You guys want to free Michael Jackson? You want to prove he's innocent? This is it right here. All of it.